Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. It is 10:58 at night. Okay, this is part 25, Theodore Rex Prologue. Rockefeller's rebate privilege had been too flagrant to survive under law, but it was followed over the years by sophisticated arrangements to the same effect. Standard Oil and engulfed its smaller rivals, while the Pennsylvania Railroad made similar deals with other industries and became one of the richest transport systems in the country. President Cleveland, Harrison, and McKinley paid little attention to the phenomenon of combination. To them, it seems a natural economic trend. If industries produced vital supplies, if railroads functioned as semi-public utilities, why restrict their profitable development? Only slowly and locally had ordinary American workers, consumers, and small businessmen begin to feel the dark power growing. For combinations, irresistible tendencies was toward monopoly, and whatever corporate executives might say about increased efficiency and reduced waste, the historic inclination of monopoly was to raise prices and lower wages. Standard Oil had taken early steps to protect itself against common law suits, and in doing so had perverted one of the most sacred words in the legal vocabulary. It reorganized its component corporations into a trust, whereby all stocks were delivered to an independent board, which then operated an entire combination in unison. Congress had no power to quash this move. Within 9 years, John D. Rockefeller had entrusted himself with 90% of the oil refining business of the United States. His profits were so fabulous that other industry giants had rushed to organize interstate trusts of their own. Congress, responding to public concern, had passed the Sherman Antitrust Law of 1890. It declared illegal every contract combination in the form of trust and conspiracy and restraint of trade or commerce among the several states. But the law was too comprehensive to be particular. Corporate lawyers, Elihu Root prominent among them, elaborated the trust concept into that of a holding company chartered in one hospitable state, yet monopolizing related corporations throughout the nation. Holding company directors concern themselves with questions of finance, so the lawyers argued they were unengaged in trade or commerce. The Supreme Court had agreed reluctantly with the argument and had ruled the USVEC Night Company 1895 that a trust controlling 98% of the nation's sugar refining businesses was legal, since refining was not itself an interstate activity. The depression of the mid-90s had cramped trust growth, but combination, aided by the spread of the telephone-telegraph web, resumed with a vengeance after the war with Spain. In 1898, there had been 20 multi-million-dollar industrial trusts. Now there were 185. The proliferation evoked an image in many minds of a constrictive organism stretching out to every extremity of American civilization, hence the title of Frank Norris's new antitrust novel, The Octopus. These trackside mourners of Olean Valley, staring blindly at Roosevelt as he whizzed by, how enmeshed were they? The oil trust paid their wages. Other trusts carpeted their houses, papered their walls, piped their water, sluiced away their sewage. Trust ice cooled them in summer. Trust wool warmed them in winter, and did trust whiskey, as did trust whiskey. These men chewed trust tobacco and checked trust watches. These women baked trust flour and cooked trust beef in trust stoves full of trust coal. These children chewed trust gum and scribbled on trust slates. Roosevelt himself had trusts to thank for the starch in his shirt, the type on his newspapers, the glass of his window, the rails under his wheels. Poor dead McKinley, 2 cars back, with jiggling in a trust coffin. What might a cynic make of that? Ideologically, Roosevelt was committed to a conservative view of the trusts. Personally, he felt a certain ambivalence. He saw grave dangers in unrestricted combination, yet he could not deny that the economy functioned better now that the trusts were in effect running it. The price of kerosene, for example, had been declining for 30 years, courtesy of Standard Oil. America was no longer a patchwork of small, self-sufficient communities. It was a great grid of monopolistic cities doing concentrated businesses with one another. Steel cities and rubber cities, cities of salt and cloth and corn and copper. Just beyond these hills was a place that actually called itself Oil City. American exporters did not need a book of vouchers to dispatch one consignment across a rickety grid of independent railroads, each with its own timetable, rates, and reliability quotient. Now one ticket sped 1,000,000 tons to either coast on flawlessly synchronized trains. At every port, trust-operated ships were ready to ferry the consignment on. If freight charges were higher than they used to be, so was turnover, and so were profits. According to recent survey, at least 65% of the national wealth was attributable to the trusts. That statistic did not even include the newest and most gigantic combination of all. Andrew Carnegie's merger of his steel company with 9 others, United States Steel, capitalized at almost $1.5 billion, and feeding more than 1 million people, was virtually a nation in itself. Its income and expenditures approximated those of second rich. It too had a Kaiser, an emperor of finance, and if today's newspapers were to be believed, Wilhelm II might soon cede him a portion of his realm. Mr. John Pierpont Morgan is trying to get control of the German steamship lines. Okay, so that's all for part 25, Prologue, Theodore Rex. Thank you for watching.